You basically can't write anything, but they managed to write entire books. I'm a little biased to the letter H, so I thought I'd use that one too. Also, because I love what it is, the technical scientific name for it is a voiceless pharyngeal fricative, which means it's produced without vibrations of the vocal cord, and it's just air against the back of the tongue. So say H. You're not vibrating your vocal cords, it's just purely air. And what's interesting is most languages use H's as silent letters for emphasis on the vowel. And it's, oddly enough, come out of the Egyptian hieroglyph for fence, where you can still see there were the hash marks, and it looked like a window in Etruscan, but it ended up pretty much the same way. M is really interesting because it's the only letter that has always been a bilabial constant, which means that you use both of your lips to say it. So say M or M. You're using both of your lips, whereas with most letters, you only use one. And M also was cool because it originated with the word for water. And the thought with that is that when you're making a humming noise, it's constant, except for when you have to breathe, like with the tides. And some people have thought that. It's not 100% yet. O is also a really, really cool word. It came from the hieroglyph for I, even though the sound was O. They said the word I differently. Particularly interesting is that the shape has remained the same since Phoenician times onward. And the thought process behind that is that every civilization makes the same shape with their mouth when they're saying it. O. Every civilization has that sound, except for the ones that make like things like that. But if they make the basic language sounds that most modern nations do, they all have some version of O. S is also really interesting, mainly for its modern history. The minuscule form of S, which is basically lowercase s, didn't originate until the 15th century. Up until that time, it looked like an F that only had half of a little thing on the side of it. In Bibles of the day, there was warnings against finfulness. And what's really cool is that if you look at an original version of the Declaration of Independence, it ensures that you have the pursuit of happiness. And it was changed at the beginning of the 19th century because there was so much, people really began to be literate and everyone was reading, and if you see that many things that look like F's, it's confusing, so it was just changed for simplifying measures. The last letter that I'm going to go through is Y, because there isn't that much of a history with it, but it's the Samian letter. And I don't know if you've heard of the Pythagorean theorem. He was a famous mathematician, but he was also a famous philosopher of the era. And he saw the letter Y as the emblem of the path of vice or virtue, and that's why it had 2 legs on it. And before we get on to the next part, I thought we would take a little break.